ability to inspire, and uplift those around him have set him apart as a beacon of wisdom and guidance. When it comes to Sir, my mind fills with thoughts of old and new, but at the same time, I go spellbound when I'm asked to describe my thoughts in speaking. He's a self-made person, a man with a crystal clear heart, logical reasoning, undisputed authority on the topics he touched, the father of abundance knowledge on artificial intelligence, who can map them with real life. Examples of past and present centuries, and on top of all, he's a great soul with simplicity. I was completely courageous to pen down and make his work and life to be translated into the form of a written book. It was a simple attempt to adore him with a collection of his own stories, gathered sitting next to him, listening, and I'm feeling blessed. I'm sure the rest is self-explanatory to understand my feelings by you as the reader of this book. Throughout his career, Professor Pant has touched the lives of generation of students, leaving an incredible impression on their hearts and minds. He is known for his engaging lectures, his ability to simplify complex concepts, his genuine concern of his students, his sense of humor. Many former students recall now, and just now Sir has shared one of the anecdotes right now, that how he related Sir in his life with this instance. So many former students recall Professor Pant would go to extra mile offering personal guidance like me and patiently explaining difficult topics until they are fully understood. But it is not only his academic prowess that defines Sir. He is also an embodiment of humility, compassion, and these are the countless anecdotes of his selflessness, like that he helped struggling students. And today we gather to honor Sir. Let us not only celebrate his professional achievement, but also acknowledge the remarkable human being he is. His life and his journey are a testament to the power of education, resilience, and the impact that one individual can have on the world. Please join me in extending a heartfelt welcome to Professor Madan Mohan Pant, a true inspiration, a guiding light. I am blessed to have him as my lifetime mentor and guide in need, like a friend indeed. I once again take this opportunity to pay my gratitude to him. Thank you to Dr. Harikrishnan for giving me this opportunity. May the Almighty choice's blessing be always showered on Sir, good health and long life. Over to you, Sir.
So, thank you, Dr. Bhavna Chippar, for those kind remarks, and Dr. A.K. Sharma for creating this event and suggesting this topic. So what is very interesting is that if you will look at educational events, very rarely will you hear a topic like experimenting with education. And I'm especially delighted because he began with that quote from Einstein. And I want to share with you ideas with respect to experimentation in education, because Dr. A.K. Sharma has already begun with the quote that the questions are the same, but the answers have changed. And what I'm really driving is that as educators, we have to continuously experiment with education to see what works and what doesn't. And there are very, very important issues. Now, today it is a very serious matter because the educational model of the past. And past is not 400 years ago or 300 years ago. Past is 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. The models of those which are very good are not necessarily continuing to be good. And while Dr. Sharma began with Einstein's quote, it is very interesting to look at a poet. Now, many of you will recall that, at least when I was in school, we learned that the very famous poem by Tennyson on Morte the Arthur, about the death of King Arthur. And there's a very nice set of lines there saying the old order changes, yielding place to new. And God fulfills himself in many ways, lest one good custom should corrupt the world. And when I was at the school level, I was like, how can a good custom become a bad custom over time? And this is what Einstein's quote says, and this is what the pursuit of science says, that what we think is right today may not be. And that is why experimenting with education is very important. Actually, one of the key exhortations I have for you is that you all have to start looking at, quote unquote, the science of learning. So far, our education models are based on authority. Somebody will tell you, any regulating body, government body, this, I will tell you, this is how you must teach, this is what has to be taught, this is the syllabus, so many hours, this is the exam, and so on. But that is not the right approach, because if you look at the scientific approach to anything, and humans have made progress because of science. I will share with you, you will be very surprised that medicine till a few hundred years ago was not a science. And I will, in my style, often tell you stories and ask you to learn more about it by going to Google or chat if you want, and so on and so forth. So you will be surprised, many of you will be surprised that in the United States, we are talking of United States and the president meeting our prime minister, the 20th president of the United States was shot by a person in July. He did not die immediately because of that bullet wound. He died 3 months later in September because of what the doctors did to him to take care of that bullet wound. You can Google for this, the US president, the tragedy of the US president's death, and the person who fired the bullets actually said later on, he said, I only shot him, but it is the doctors who killed him. Now you imagine, and this is 1881, not too long ago, not 1,000 years ago. The point I'm trying to make is that all those fields which are guided by science are likely to succeed, and fields which are not guided by science are likely to be whims and fancies of people. I won't go further into this. You can read this, you will thoroughly enjoy it. And this is where it becomes our duty as educators to find out what science tells about educators. Now, the thing that I want to share with you, and as I said, I don't want to give you the answers, but want to give you thoughts on that. The first is that I have been fortunate enough to have had a lot of opportunities for experiments in education. Most people are not that lucky. They usually are in one system and they stay in that system till they retire and so on. So I began my teaching in 1966, long before any kind of technology was used in teaching. It was a standard chalk and talk and the sage on the stage. And I remember my first advice was that speak loudly enough so that the student at the last bench can hear you, and write big enough on the board so that the students in the last row can read what you have written on the board. That's where I began. But I had a lot of variety of experiences, and I will quickly go through because I want more interaction. So I told Dr. Sharma that I will speak for about half an hour or so, and then request you to make your comments, observations, and I'll respond to that. So one of my first jobs after postdoctoral and so on was at IIT Kanpur. Why I'm mentioning IIT Kanpur is because IIT Kanpur was a major experiment in engineering education in India. Engineering education existed in India long before IITs. Guindy College of Engineering is very old. Banaras Hindu University was very old. Roorkee was very old, and so on. But when the IITs came, they transformed the slide rule wielding engineer to a computer programmer. IIT Kanpur had an IBM computer from US. IIT Delhi had an ICL computer from UK. IIT Madras had a Siemens computer from Germany. IIT Powai had a Russian computer, and so on. And this was what is often called the paradigm shift. Now you had a completely new branch type of engineers who could solve programs while looking at they would not follow procedures. The earlier engineers will follow procedures which have been given everywhere. But these could write programs, they could write algorithms, they could convert algorithms into programming languages and write programs which solve. And so this is one of the first experiment, and you now know today the glory of the IIT, its success, and you know most of your students are all wanting to get into IIT, so on. And this is a very, very important story that I wish to share. And as I said, I'm quite happy to talk comments about how schools can also be doing a similar thing. The other opportunity I got for experimentation was when I joined the Indira Gandhi National Open University. This was experiments in distance learning. So Indira Gandhi National Open University, the National Open School, and a few others like this became examples of distance learning. The traditional distance learning began with, of course, printed paper, booklets, sending them to the post office. They were somewhat similar to correspondence courses. But as you know, there was a time when they started experimenting with satellite-based education. So the EduSat was launched and it was available for education institutions, and we used the satellite to connect a lot of remote institutions. Then, of course, around the year 2008, 2012 was the time of MOOCs coming up, massive open online courses. It began with University of Manitoba in Canada, but then as you know, you started having EDX, Udemy, Coursera, so on and so forth. You started having things. And now we are talking about AI in education, mobile apps in education, and these are all experiments that are happening. Many of you may have used things like Duolingo, which is a mobile app for education, so on. So this is where it is. And why I'm referring to these is you have a big challenge before you. India has announced some time back a national quantum mission. And it is not just a mere announcement, it has been followed up by a budget allocation of 6,000 crores. And there are 4 parts to that mission. One is called quantum computing, other is called quantum communications, third is called quantum sensors and metrology, not meteorology. Meteorology is about weather, metrology is about measurements. And finally, quantum materials and devices. Now, why this has been announced some time back. In fact, yesterday, I think 21st June, the Secretary University Grants Commission has sent a letter to all vice chancellors of universities to get ready or get universities, etc., to participate in this quantum mission. Now, it is very interesting. If you think of it seriously, you cannot do this with universities directly. You have to have it at the school level also, because without the schools actually actively participating, how will the people be ready? They don't come straight away to university and become quantum. Quantum has to begin when physics is being taught at class 11 and 12. So it is something where all schools have to also get part when they will come to schools and when schools will realize it's a matter of this thing. And the whole mission is for about 8 years. You need at least 2 years in school, then 4 years in university before a person is anywhere near comfortable with quantum to be part of this thing. So the other thing is right now, as Prime Minister Modi meets with President Biden, they've signed another Indo-US collaboration on AI and quantum. Now, what I'm trying to say is that it is therefore imperative that you start experimenting with students learning at the school level. So how do you prepare people for the generation of AI and quantum? Now, as you know, after AI chat GPT, many people have started running away from AI, banning chat GPT, doing all those kind of things. That is not the right approach. It has to be something that we have to prepare for. So this is what I really wanted to say, that this is no longer esoteric. This is here and now. If you want your students to be successful, like the students in the 1960s who went to IIT and those who picked up the new areas that were there, you will have to prepare for this. And that is why innovation and experimentation in teaching is going to be very critical. I'll share with you a few things that we've been doing. We, by means in the country, various people. That doesn't mean everybody has been doing. What we've been doing is from which you can draw. So I'll share with you a few of these things with some brief meeting. And then, of course, I will look forward to your comments, observations, and so on. Now, the first thing about is that we have to encourage people to learn science. Now, I know that by and large, people do look at science and towards engineering and so on. But in the past, there has been a less interest in engineering. And the answer is that traditional engineering is not so interesting, but new engineering is. And this is what is important. So we have to look at, and if you look at even GRE, this thing people are taking more in sciences and so on. And I will explain. So if you look at engineering, long time back, there was only one engineering, civil engineering, or actually it was construction engineering. Then came electrical, mechanical, then came chemical, then textile, and so on and so forth. Computer, electronics, electrical, etc. They are right now more in a saturation mode. Saturation means it is there, it is growing, this new thing, but there are not so much new things happening at that rate. But equally new things are coming up. Quantum engineering suddenly, in part of US now, you can do a 4-year program in quantum engineering. In Australia, in New South Wales, you can do a 4-year program in quantum engineering. In India, I am not sure it has been announced yet, but sure it will be. But the core is science. And that is why we should engage people in science. And there also, I want to share with you that we have been, and I am part of that, the physical sciences are the dominant science. Now the time is coming for life sciences as being an important science. I mentioned to you quantum engineering. Equally, there's going to be protein engineering, tissue engineering, bioengineering of various kinds, cell engineering, and immune system engineering. All kinds of things are coming up, and therefore this is going to be very, very important. The other aspect that is going to be important is going to be computing. We have already seen that we have created that interest. Lots of students want to learn, but we have somehow limited it to coding. Now, coding is not going to be all that important because that will be done by automation. But understanding information engineering, if you might like to say, information complexity, to say, will turn out to be more and more important. And this is therefore the other thing that is important is personalization of learning. I think in slide which Dr. Sharma showed also, we've said, see, our so far model is same thing for everybody. If 10 crore children are going to do class 10 in science, all of them will get the same paper, all of them will learn the same thing, and so on. This is not the future. The future is that the same subject, people will study with different perspectives, with different different ways, in different depth, and so on. Somebody may want to know more on experimentation, somebody may know more on mathematics, somebody may want to know more on theory, somebody may want to be a science journalist. He's still studying science, but he wants to be a journalist in science, a communicator in science, a commentator in science. So this is the kind of thing that is going to come up. Another important aspect, and I can say that I personally have played around with this, experimented around with this, is something called mastery learning. Today we have a very funny system, and I don't know how it has come and why it has come. We pass people when they get something like even either 33 out of 100, 35 out of 100, or whatever. Now, I don't understand. First, we make it compulsory. So as far as I know, maths is compulsory up to, say, class 10. But maths is compulsory, but you will pass him when he's got only 35% in maths. So I don't understand. Either knowing maths is important and critical, then the person should know. At 35%, the person doesn't know. But we will pass him, saying you can now go to 11, 12, or even in 12th, we will pass him and say you can go further. But if that thing, so mastery learning is something, even if the system doesn't do, learners, teachers, and parents should take upon themselves the approach that we will learn something fully, in the sense that if we have learned maths or science or literature or history or geography, we would know and know that we know. See, you say I passed in geography, but I know only capitals of 30% of the countries in the world. It is of no use, and especially in the age of AI, when the computer will tell you everything. So then not to know is going to be an even bigger handicap. Now, in terms of pedagogies, I want to suggest a few right now. More than suggesting, I'm drawing your attention to a few, because some of you must have already practiced it before. So flipped learning is one of the things which happened in the recent past. You know the story of flipped learning. It was two chemistry teachers who found that very bright students in their classes would go away to represent the school in various places. And then they would come back and say, sir, what did you teach in the class that I missed? And eventually what they did is they started making videos of all their classes. And whenever a student who missed a class, they would say, watch the video and catch up, which they then improvised, and Khan Academy also helped in that. So now flipped learning is a model where any teacher can say, this is what I'm going to teach in the next class. Please watch these videos, read these books, try these exercises, do all these things, and then come to class. And in class, we will have an engaged interactive session. And remember the word interactive, because this is what I'm going to come up more and more, because as Dr. Sharma said in the beginning, one of the big changes that has happened is from passive learning, we want to move to interactive or active learning. And including this session also, I will make it into active learning after a few more minutes. So flipped learning has proved to be very successful, especially in difficult subjects like science, maths, English language, and so on, because they can get the teacher's help in really learning better. What they could learn on their own, they've already learned at home. And what they couldn't learn on their own and where they need the help of others, especially a teacher or peer group, that is being provided in the class when they are there. The next thing that I want to talk about, and again, some of you might have tried, and if you haven't, you should, is something called a web quest. So web quest is something which is, flipped learning can happen without the internet. So you can give the material, you can give the video, they can watch it on the mobile phone or whatever, and so on. Web quest means you have the internet. So you have a topic for the class. That's why it is called a quest. You give them some topics, some goals to search for, some hints for what to search for, and then let them go to the web and search. They can search from Google. They can follow the links which goes from Google. They can do that directly into Wikipedia. They can do that directly into YouTube. and they will get all those kind of comments, etc. and tubes. And as you know, in YouTube, when you see one video, it will recommend another video, and so on and so forth. And then they are supposed to write their response and then present it in a class. So now what happens is, if you will recall, many of you will remember that the famous learning pyramid that we talk about, that we remember only 5% of what we hear in a lecture, something more of what we read, something more, but we remember a lot more of what we engage in, discussion, try to teach, whatever, and so on. So WebQuest becomes a very interesting thing, and especially when you're coming across new topics, new pieces which maybe are not in the book also, because books, as you know, are very, very limited, and nowadays, you know, NCERT books can be very limited, but you want to know a lot more things. So which the book doesn't have, or even not only NCERT books, even the private publisher textbook might not have, but you can get it from the web. And these are guided web quests. So both the flip learning model and the web quest is guided by the teacher. It is not general, just surfing around at random, no wandering around. There's a guidance given, you search for, and this is an example of what is called active learning. And the reason I'm talking about active learning is that if there is one message you must take from this session, it is take a pledge that you will move from a passive learner to an active learner, both as a teacher and yourself. Even as yourself, whatever your age may be, however you are, there is so much new happening. It is important that you become an active learner. And when you're teaching, don't get your children to become passive learners. Get them to become active learners. And it is not only M.M. Pant who's saying this. I'm saying this, but I am, as Newton had said, I'm backed by this because I'm on the shoulders of giants. I want to share with you one important name. And this name is Carl Wieman, Carlwieman. Just Google for this person whenever you, and I'm telling you more about it. Carl Wieman is a physicist, not an ordinary physicist. He is a Nobel Prize winning physicist. He got a Nobel Prize recently, 2010-11 or so, for his work on what is called Bose-Einstein condensation. And you know that Bose-Einstein condensation is again a frontier thing with where both Satyen Bose and Albert Einstein were involved in the theory, but he actually did working experimentally on Bose-Einstein condensation. So that is one thing. What is more important is that he's also an educationist, and not an educationist just on the side. He is in the faculty of education in Stanford University and has also won a very high-level prize, which is given to educationists. There is no Nobel Prize in education, but a very high-level prize in education is also given to him. And he is a great promoter of active learning. And he is a great opponent of mere lecturing. And he says lectures should almost be banned. And what is interesting in his modesty, he says, I have not invented active learning. All good teachers from times immemorial have invented good learning, active learning. Even if you will recall, APJ Abdul Kalam talks about his visit to Rameshwaram and some teacher who showed them flying birds and explained how flying happens. And this is what got interested him in rockets and missiles and so on and so forth. So active learning is practiced by teachers all over. Only it is occasional, rare, and far between. What Carl Wieman is saying, active learning should be the basic thing. Instead of making a learner a passive learner, we have to make this. So he says, I have not invented active learning. And he also says, I am not saying there is any particular Wieman method of active learning. I'm saying you practice, you look at your students, you see what is the thing which is interesting them, what is exciting them, and so on and so forth. And then create your own thing. And we all can do that. In fact, if you recall, very often, even when you're doing your B.Ed or something, they will always teach you the steps that you have to get people to be interested. There's a very famous Garnier's 9 steps of instruction, where he says begin with gaining attention, then relate to learning, and so on. So basically what I am trying to say, and I will wrap up now and request for your comments, observations, that we have to move from passive learning to active learning. We have all these resources which are available, not only digital and electronic. Digital electronic is all right, but you can actually use stuff which is around in the school, including the blackboard and so on. But get them to use their brain. And I just want to share with you an amusing story, because from what Dr. Sharma said, he enjoyed some of my stories. So I want to share with you something. Now, you know, there are lots of birds. You will, if you ask any child, he will tell you a bird flies. You see the ordinary bird in your house, sparrow, this, that, they all fly. But do you know there are birds which cannot fly? They have wings, but they cannot fly. The ostrich is a bird which has wings, large wings, but cannot fly. The chicken that you eat for food does not fly. There's a bird called EMU in New Zealand. It cannot fly. The dodo was a bird in Mauritius, couldn't fly. We do not want to be like birds who have wings but cannot fly. We are humans with brains. We must learn to use our brains, and only then we will flourish. We don't want to be people who have biological brains, physiological brains, but don't know how to use the brains. Active learning is about getting people to learn to use the brains. So what I will do is I spend some time talking initial things. I'm quite happy to add to things, but now I would request the moderator, whoever is there, is Dr. Sharma, or he has deputed a moderator, to kindly request people to ask questions. And if there is something in the chat box which I may not have seen, he can point out to me and then I can respond to that. So I would like to now make this part of active learning and action. Okay. So any comments, observations, etc., etc.
Please ask the questions. Any queries, any question?
Exact spelling can't win in. I'm not able to write the name correct.
What is it? Carl Wieman, CARL WIEMAN.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and you will Google for him. He's a very distinguished person. His articles, exactly this, "Don't Lecture Me," is a very famous article by him, published in Nature.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening us. I would like to ask a question regarding flip learning. How exactly, though you very briefly you talked about flip learning in a very simple way, but in our day-to-day teaching, it becomes very difficult to continue with flip learning, though we are trying, but exactly how conveniently we can use it with the senior classes where we have
Yeah.
a lot of burden for day-to-day academics. Kindly
Yeah,
tell us
so
more
very
about
good, so very good, so very good. So see, what you will do is, and that's why we call this experiment. So use flip learning for a difficult topic. So in your syllabus, let us say there are 30 topics which you are going to teach during the course. You will see 4 or 5 are difficult topics. So I can, for example, in physics, I can say in thermodynamics, entropy is very difficult. Many people don't understand. Centripetal force, centrifugal force, they find it difficult to understand. So as an experienced teacher, so don't try to convert everything into flip learning. So you say there are 30 sessions that I will take. Let me see which 5 are difficult and challenging for most people. Use that for flip learning. So firstly, this will become a break and people will enjoy. See, normally people enjoy anything which is different. If flip learning becomes routine, they will start feeling bored with it. So pick up these 4 or 5 topics, prepare on that, send them material in advance, let them see YouTube videos, you give them the link to the video, You give them link to Wikipedia article, you give them link to Khan Academy, or including your own. Even you can make a recording and give it to them at once. But the point is, they study it or read it by themselves. And then you make a few questions to see whether they're understanding this. So suppose this is the topic, typically you would do in an hour or so. Put 5 questions to test their understanding. And when they come to class, they should be ready with their answers to those questions. This will also give you an idea of how well they are understanding. And what you will begin with is, you will begin with saying, who were the people who could answer all 5 questions? Who could answer all 4 questions, put 4 of 5, and so on. And then those who answered all 5, you encourage them to respond to the students who could not answer some of the questions. So what happens is, when there is peer teaching, students appreciate a little better. Often they are intimidated by the teacher themselves or herself, and this becomes. Then whatever remains, you give overall observations. Just like if you attend a conference or seminar, in the panel discussion, the moderator then gives some comments to put everything in order. And then you give them the highlight thing that, remember, these are the 4 important concepts, these are the 4 things. These are often called in pedagogy threshold concepts. So these are very important aspects which people must appreciate in order to go further in that. So you are absolutely right. You cannot just convert everything to flipped learning from day one and follow that. It may also not be so effective, but you can pick up a few topics and 4 or 5, which will make them work on that. Okay. Similarly for WebQuest. So if you want variety, you can say, I will take 4 or 5 flipped sessions, 4 or 5 WebQuest, and 20 standard class.
Thank you.
Any other?
Sir, what I just wanted a question regarding the pyramid learning.
Yeah. No, it is not pyramid learning. It is the pyramid of learning. If you Google for it, called pyramid of learning, it is a standard diagram which shows that we learn very little from lectures. We learn a little more from reading. We learn something more from discussion. We learn even more from teaching, and we learn more from project work, and so on. So you just Google for the pyramid of learning and search for images. You will get very nice, colorful diagrams which will talk about the relatively ineffectiveness of lectures. The other thing which is also very important is that students' span of attention is not very large. So research shows that span of attention is about 10 minutes. And we give lectures for 50 minutes. And therefore, the suggestion over in all these things is, if you keep activities which are there in breaks of 10 minutes, then the student brain is more engaged. That's why active learning remains. Okay.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for your time and your effort you have taken to interact with the principals of Bharati Vidyavan and the other schools in India. I'm from Abu Dhabi. I'm Suresh. I had a golden chance to listen to your live talk in Rajasthan a few months before. So we have been talking about the cognitive aspect of learning, the constructive aspect of learning, and how reinforcement happens, why social interactivism is very much important in the field of pedagogy and all with all our teachers. But unfortunately, the present generation of teachers were the ones who got trained in the colleges of the current educational institutions, wherein teacher plays a dominant role. Teacher is an intellectual giant and he stands in front of the class as a giant. So from that status to the status of a co-learner, that transformation, they find really, really very difficult. So as an educationalist, I wish you to take the initiative to influence the government to introduce this transformation and change in the way teachers are trained.
Yeah. So see, what happens is, you are absolutely right. It is all about our mental models. So what happened is that, as you said, we have usually praised all people for being very great. So who's the great? Radha Krishnan. So we all want to be Radha Krishnan. But why can't we be more like a tutor? See, you are in Abu Dhabi, but Oxford, Cambridge have very good tradition of a tutor. Tutor is your friend, philosopher, guide. Now, if I want to be a friend, philosopher, guide to my students, it's very different from I aspiring to be Radha Krishnan or D.S. Kothari to my students. So this is the trust that we have had. Now, if we say that a good teacher is somebody, and I come from physics background, Richard Feynman was a very friendly teacher. He would actually, he was a brilliant person, Nobel laureate, etc. But his conversation language was very simple. And in fact, he would even say, damn it. He will say, when he was talking about quantum computing, he said, damn it, the nature is quantum. So when a teacher looks like another fellow human with whom you engage, interact, you become, it is a given thing. And I remember even when I was a PhD student, it was said that all students try to copy their guides. So if I'm a PhD student and my guide smokes cigar, I will start smoking cigar. If he smokes a pipe, I will start smoking a pipe. So this is true. But so you said we have to go out and become role models, that the great teacher is not necessarily one who is a legendary figure like Radha Krishnan or Kothari or somebody else, but is a person who influences more people, who has a lot more people who can come up to him almost like just knock on the door or pick up the phone and say, sir, I wanted to ask you something. If people can do that, you are a great teacher. But so far we have said, no, somebody who's in very high position, you can't meet him. He is director general of this. So that is what we have to do that. And this happens because social structures change. There was a social structure where being unavailable, inaccessible was importance. You remember those kings would give their darshan on some day, Diwane Aam, they will show themselves and you can meet. But if you say in today's electronic social media, you are always available through WhatsApp, through this, through that, it will become. And the importance is really that the role of a good teacher is to remove the cognitive barriers in the learning or to remove the cobwebs in the thinking. So you should actually say a big teacher is somebody who acha jharu de ke removes the cobwebs in your thinking. That is a good teacher. Right?
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes. Any other comment?
So you are on mute.
Who's on? I'm.
Yeah. Education was speaking something. So
We cannot listen you. Dipali, I think you are on mute.
uh, I hope I'm audible now.
Yes.
Now you're audible.
So it's my privilege to extend a vote of thanks for this session. I extend my thanks, not only my thanks, on behalf of all the participants. I extend thanks to Professor M.M. Pant.
Dipali,
Sir, I thank
Dipali,
you. Yes, sir.
Dipali, I think some questions are left. So first ask them if there any questions are left, and
Okay,
then
sir. Sure. Yes, in case anybody wishes to ask any questions, so if you have any queries.
Okay, it's okay. Okay.
Sir, I'm here to thank you. So as I began with, I extend my thanks to Professor M.M. Pant, and I thank you on behalf of all the participants for being our mentor and sharing with us your findings and opinions today. I must mention my deep sense of appreciation for Sir's explanation of the topic. And I'm nobody to just appreciate. Actually, I'm thanking you because A.K. Sharma sir told me once that, have you ever heard M.M. Pant sir? I said, no, sir, I haven't. So he said, then you should experience. And then after listening to you, sir, sorry, excuse me, the way you explained the topic is exemplary. We must all become active learners. This is what I think is the gist of the talk, that we all must become active learners, as active teachers will motivate students to become active learners. And it is quite obvious that once we have chosen to become teachers, we remain learners forever. And it's not only for teachers, every human being, as you said, we are blessed with brains. So we should always keep inquiring. So that inquisitiveness should always be there with us. So, sir, thank you for giving us so much of information, and at the same time giving us uh, so much from your vast experience that you have. And I would also like to thank Dr. Bhavna Chibar ma'am for introducing Sir. And then surely we all would like to read what you have written about Sir. So, and here I shouldn't forget one very important person, that is Dr. A.K. Sharma sir, because he is the one who has inspired all the participants to attend the session. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I would also like to thank all the participants for sparing their valuable time and being with us here. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir. There's one information for our participants that I'm sending ebook, a biography of Professor Pant to everybody. In case you are not receiving it, please WhatsApp to me. You will get it soon. And it was a very interesting session, sir. Thank you very much. We
Thank
are
you.
all
Thank you.
enlightened. We are all blessed. It is
Thank you.
always a pleasure to listen to you every time. New energy, new enthusiasm, new vigor
Thank you.
arises when I listen to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, and all the best to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Right.
And now we are proceeding to Shanti part. Om Shanti Prithvi Shanti Rapa Shanti Rokhadaya Shanti Vanaspataya Shanti Vishwe Deva Shanti Brahm Shanti Sarva Brahm Shanti Shanti Deva Shanti Sama Shanti Redhi. Om Shanti 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 Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhavet. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bhavna. Please check your email box or check your WhatsApp for the book. Thank you all. Namaste.